Can you give us your name and your role and responsibilities in this production?
All right, my name is Megan Schulz. I worked as a techie for this show, which means I helped with the recording and recording with the microphones, breaking down of the microphones, playing back of the music, and I also helped with filming. I was Dr. Briggs' eyes.
Yes, you're my eyes. Yes, you were. Yes. And so you're a freshman this year, correct?
Yes, I am a freshman this year.
Yes. So it's interesting how normally freshmen actually don't participate nearly as much as you did this year. The unique situation we're in puts you in a much more heavily involved in the actual production itself. So in thinking about that and thinking about the other ways that you've been that COVID has impacted what you're doing, can you talk about the ways that COVID has impacted your music making?
It hasn't impacted it too drastically in my opinion. I just have to wear a mask whenever I'm singing, and I just have to wear a mask more. It really doesn't hinder it, although some things are a little harder to describe whenever it comes to the placement and with your tongue in your mouth and how wide it's supposed to be because my instructors aren't able to see it this year.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So trying to figure that out involves a lot more communication than it normally would.
Yes, yeah, good point, yeah. We did a film production this year instead of a live production. This question might be difficult for you to answer as a freshman, but you can think about what you think might have been. If we had done this production as a live production instead of a film production, how do you think your role would have been different?
I probably wouldn't have to have put up and taken down as many mics. I would have to have moved more props around a little more often, most definitely, since we had some things that need to be moved on and off stage for different scenes. I would just have to do that live, and I would have to have worn black a lot more than I actually did.
That's true. So, how do you think that your approach to collaboration as a musician has been affected by this pandemic?
I'm not really sure. I do think we have to give each other a little more leeway when it comes to arriving, on time, making sure everything's ready, because we do have to limit the amount of people that can be in a room during certain times, especially with the actors. When they were changing, they were only, with the area they used, they could only have one, so it took a lot longer than normal with that. Since we have restrictions on how many people can be in a certain room due to square footage, then just communication is also a little harder because these masks muffle our voices by a lot.
Very true. How did you? I'm assuming you probably had an idea of how your role would be in opera coming in as a freshman. How did your perception of what you thought you were going to do and what you actually did, how did those differ?
Well, I'm not exactly sure how opera usually goes here because, again, I'm a freshman. But I feel like I put a lot, I heard I put a lot more time and effort into it than I normally would have. And
you did.
Yeah, I am honestly completely fine with it because either way my attitude going into it was I'm going to do what is asked me and do it as best as I could. So that expectation didn't change, it's just the amount to which I had to do it.
Did you notice anything? So, one of the main things freshmen do is observe upperclassmen and how they approach learning their roles and how they approach music making themselves. Is there anything in particular that you can think of, maybe a particular moment even, where you saw something that impacted how you're going to approach how you learn music as we move forward?
Yeah, most definitely. It was their willingness and eagerness to get the recordings done as best as they could and having to learn to adjust, getting used to all the extra chords we had to bring in one day or to record something, and the willingness to work with the people who were trying to make that work as smoothly as possible was absolutely incredible to see, and it made it a lot easier to work with them.
Cool, good. Is there anything that we didn't do that you really wish we could have done in this production?
In all honesty, I'm not really sure. I'm not sure how regular production would have gone. I'm not sure if there's anything we would have done different. I just went with what we were doing this time. And I think for what we were able to get done, I think we did a pretty good job.
Oh, good, well, thank you. What was your favorite moment in the show?
The lobster. The lobster that kept popping up in just about every scene.
Now, people who see this interview are going to go back and watch and look for the lobster, which is good. They should look for the lobster.
I'm not sure how.
What in the production did you like the least?
Probably it was one Saturday when we were recording the actors after we had recorded the instrumental. Trying to find the spots for that was long. I was on the computer pretty much the entire day. By the end of it, I had a bit of a headache from staring at the screen for as long as I did.
Yeah, I think I think certainly speak for Dr. Brown in this, that the way that as freshmen, that especially and you in particular, stepped up to really fulfill roles that we hadn't needed in the past, and doing things that kept us moving, kept us going, was something we really noticed and something we appreciated so much.
I just love that we can depend on you. To be
Oh,
able to
yeah.
say,
Oh
my goodness.
okay, and that if I ask her to do something, it's done. No problem. I don't have to second guess, micromanage anything. And I already have been bragging to the theater faculty about you and was like, okay, you just need to know this name and you need to know
Yes.
that
Yeah.
you're going to want to use her at some point in a production later on. But that's the thing. That's how you're starting to make your mark, which is exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And it's things like this where the way you distinguish yourself that I think are going to set you up for success as long as you're here. So, and we're glad you're here.
You did very much distinguish yourself with this. It was, especially for me being at a distance, it was great to just. I mean, I just said your name and you just appeared.
Mhm.
It was like this little magic.
Yep.
If you could go back to before the pandemic, and this would be I'm really interested to hear your answer to this as someone who moved from high school to college during this time.
Mm-hmm.
If you could go back to right before the pandemic, just a few days before, and tell yourself anything at all that you needed to know, what would that be?
Life will keep going forward, and it really isn't going to be that hard. You will have to make a few adjustments, but it's just a mask.
Oh, I love that. It's just a mask. It's really great. Is there anything you'd like to add, share with us as for our little documentation here?
I don't have really anything to say.
That's okay.
Oh, that's great.
Well, you did great.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks.